All right. Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone, to Cloud Chats. It is October 14th, I believe. Yep, 2021. This is episode 33, and this is our special KubeCon Cloud Native Con North America 2021 edition. And I'm so excited to be joined by some special guests. So, from DigitalOcean, it's me. I'm Kim Schlesinger. I'm a digital, or I keep saying I'm a digital advocate. I'm a developer advocate at DigitalOcean, and I focus on cloud native technologies. And we have Matt Cowley. Matt, will you introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Matt. I work in our marketing team as an engineer. I'm community platform manager by title.
Excellent. Thank you. And our special guest for KubeCon, we have Matt Jarvis, Director of Developer Relations at Snyk, and Michelle C. From Ambassador Labs. Michelle, what's your title?
Director of Customer Marketing.
Excellent. Director of Customer Marketing. So Matt Jarvis and myself are attending KubeCon virtually, and Michelle is attending in person. So that's one reason why they're here. So we want to welcome everybody who's watching. If you're in the audience, say hey in the chat. Tell us where you're coming from. And we're going to hop into our Hello World question. So our Hello World question today is, what is your most used emoji? What is your most used emoji? And I can start. It's a custom emoji in Slack, but it's a smiley face with a neutral like mouth, just a straight line. It's just nodding as like a way to acknowledge like, yes, I agree with that. Absolutely. So that's my most used emoji. What about you all? What's your most used emoji?
So, sorry, Michelle, go on.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say it's a bit of a rite of passage at Snyk to have your own custom emoji. Like that's when you know you've arrived, is when someone makes you a custom emoji. So I have my own match A emoji on the Snyk Slack, which I'm very proud of.
I think we have a bot that does that for us. I don't think no one ever uses them. Like, I think every single person in the company has one. I've never seen them used really.
Yeah, DigitalOcean, when you get hired and like put into Slack, there's a regular emoji of you and then a party emoji of you. That Slack rainbow colors. I thought I was special. I thought it was just for me, but it's everybody.
I use the thumbs up emoji a lot, but also the classic laugh crying emoji.
Yeah, that's the one I use. Rolling on the floor laughing.
Yep. Yeah. A truly joyful emoji.
I guess it was like 5 or 6 years ago. I noticed in my work Slack that people were using the point up emoji, which I really liked, but I started responding to messages with what I thought was the point up emoji. And my manager was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, I'm using the point up emoji.
It was the middle finger emoji.
I had to use the middle finger emoji, which is not a nice gesture. So I always check check which finger is pointing up at this point. Well, we're going to look at some of the contributions we have in chat. If you haven't already, say, hey, tell us your name, where you're from, and what's your favorite emoji. So, well, we've got someone who just says Michelle. So, hey, Brian, I think we're happy to have you here. And we've got Tech, who we've seen before. I believe you're from Bhutan. Welcome back. Evan from South Africa. Welcome. We're glad to have you. Yes, we have Yoganth, one of our regulars. Great to see you. It's all right if you're a little bit late. And then Evan says, my most used emoji is starstruck. That's a good one. The smiley face with the star eyes. I like that. And Brian, who works at DigitalOcean, also says party employee name is pretty good. So yeah, like Party Kim, Party Michelle, Party Matt.
There is still a Party Michelle, so.
Yeah, the emojis don't get removed when you move on.
I'm glad.
So Oh, we've got Rockstar74 who might be rating our Twitch channel. So if that's true, thank you. We're so happy to have you back. And they said, I've spent 4 hours getting everything on DigitalOcean today. But then they say all hail the droplet. So I assume it's a good 4 hours, not a like, it took me 4 hours. It's like, it took me 4 hours. Great. Well, if you're dropping in, oh, thank you. Good 4 hours. Oops, big win. Excellent. Well, if you're just joining us, tell us your name, where you are watching from, and maybe what's your favorite emoji. So we're glad to have you here. All right. I think we can move on to our next segment. Oh, wait, did we hear everybody's favorite emoji here?
I think we did.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, then we can go on. So we're going to move on to our next segment, which is guest interviews. And we're going to interview Matt and Michelle and hear more about them. So we're going to start with Matt Jarvis of Snyk. And Matt, tell us, what is your current role?
I think I'm probably a professional hand waver. I don't know how that kind of comes over to everybody else who's in DevRel, but yeah, I'd spend a lot of time, over the last 4 or 5 years, talking about stuff at conferences and waving my hands about a lot. But for folks who aren't in DevRel, DevRel is one of these jobs that, like, I always describe it as wearing a lot of hats while spinning a lot of plates. There's just a lot of different stuff going on. But I guess I manage a team of developer advocates now, but our job really is to be the conduit between our users and our product, and to make users successful using Snyk. And for folks who aren't familiar with Snyk, Snyk are a developer first security company. So we make kind of next generation security products super easy to use for developers to be able to make their code secure.
How did you get into tech?
So that's an interesting question. I guess, I've been around technology for quite a long time, as you can probably tell from the gray hair. But I started programming computers in the 80s when I was a kid, 8-bit stuff. And but I don't have a computer science degree. I kind of there's like a lot of people of my generation. I kind of got into technology as a job through Linux. So I started using Linux in kind of 93, 94, and I guess there's quite a lot of people who discovered Linux then and kind of managed to make it their careers, who didn't necessarily have computer science degrees. So that's really what got me into technology as a career. And the thread, I guess, throughout my entire career, I've done a lot of different things, as a lot of people in DevRel tend to have done. I was CTO of a public cloud company, and I've been in engineering organizations, and I've run infrastructure and done a lot of different things. But I guess the strand through all of that is building stuff with Linux and open source. So it all kind of goes back to that point, I guess.
Outstanding, thank you. Is this your first KubeCon?
No, it most definitely is not my first KubeCon. I guess my first KubeCon was in 2017, 2018, I think. Copenhagen, I think, start of 2018.
Nice.
I've kind of missed a couple along the way for various reasons. I broke my leg when I was supposed to be going to San Diego.
Oh, no.
And discovered it's quite hard to get on a plane with a broken leg. So I didn't make that one. But I've been to most of them, especially obviously virtually for the last couple of years.
Excellent. And then what's been your favorite part of this year's KubeCon? We still have today and tomorrow, but...
Yeah, I'm kind of, because of time zones, I'm kind of operating a day behind at the minute. So I'm still on the first day and catching up with stuff. But I think there's a bunch of stuff that I've found really interesting over the last couple of KubeCons, really. One of the things is that, whilst we've all moaned about not being able to go in person, what I've really noticed is how these virtual ones and now this hybrid one have opened up the game really to underrepresented groups, especially from, folks from Africa, folks from India, who wouldn't have been able to travel in person. That engagement from places like that has gone through the roof, and I think that's fantastic. And we've got to work out a way where we can continue that, even when folks are back to go into conferences in person, because I think that it's fantastic that that folks from underrepresented communities have been able to participate. My favorite thing always from KubeCon is really the hallway tracks and chatting to people. And so the hallway tracks on Slack that folks put together have been great for the last 2 or 3 events. That's been super busy this time. I watched the keynotes from Wednesday with a bunch of other folks on a Zoom call. So I think that kind of stuff's great, really. And so yeah, I mean, all that kind of stuff about community is really what gets me excited. So yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I think the hybrid and virtual events, are cheaper and you don't have to travel, and opens up opportunities for people who maybe can't do that regularly.
Yeah.
Great. Well, Matt, is there anything I didn't ask that you'd like to share?
Nothing I can think of at the minute. So yeah, let's move on.
Great. Well, it looks like we got a big jump in viewers. So if you just joined us, welcome. This is DigitalOcean Cloud Chats. It's our weekly talk show about technology. This week, we're focusing on what's going on at KubeCon North America, which is happening in LA and online right now. We just wrapped up a brief interview with Matt Jarvis, one of our guests from Snyk. And now I'm going to interview Michelle C. from Ambassador Labs. So Michelle, what's your current role?
Hi. As you can see, I'm in sunny California right now with the sun streaming in.
Don't.
It looks nice.
So hi, everyone. I'm Michelle C., Director of Customer Marketing at Ambassador Labs. I work very closely with almost all externally facing teams in the company, our sales, solutions engineering, customer experience and support, and community and DevRel teams to build and nurture relationships with our customers and identify key users for further engagement and advocacy, for things like case studies, success stories, partner opportunities, and to be an active participant in our programs as well, such as being like a design partner with our engineering and product for our releases. So our team represents the voice of the customer internally. And for anyone not familiar, at Ambassador, we have 2 popular open source projects that are part of the CNCF. One is Telepresence, which lets you easily spin up a local development environment and connects your local system to your cluster to help develop and debug apps in Kubernetes. And we also have Emissary Ingress, an Envoy proxy-based ingress solution, or API gateway, or you're more familiar for Kubernetes. Yep.
Excellent. Thank you. How did you get into tech?
Okay, so my first foray into tech was almost a decade ago through programmatic advertising. So I worked in ad tech, the world of real-time bidding and automated buying and selling platforms, which was kind of an easy-ish transition from more traditional digital ad sales at a big TV network. I worked at NBC, where I started my career back in the day. So after a few years in ad tech, I floated along with you all in the cloud.
And you used to work at DigitalOcean?
I used to work at DigitalOcean. I was most recently on the DigitalOcean team before coming to Ambassador Labs. So, I know these people. Hello. Good to reunite on the other side, on the virtual screen.
It's fun to be able to connect with colleagues that have gone to different companies, but then you still get to work together. So thank you. I don't think I asked Matt this, so I can come back to Matt after Michelle, but what gets you fired up at work?
Okay. 2 things. One is talking to a really engaged customer, who's sharing happy feedback and or very specific constructive feedback. So the support engineers and I talk to users about their experience with us and bring, stories to the front lines, if you will, to our product engineering team. So it always gets us fired up and talking. And then the other one is a good opportunity for Kubernetes puns.
That's a good answer.
What about you, Matt? What gets you fired up?
So, I mean, I think helping folks understand complex technical stuff. I mean, that's why I got into this game to start with. You know, that's a really big thing for me, and building community. I think that was one of my big drivers to get into DevRel, as I'd been involved in open source communities for 20 years. So, building community is super important to me.
Outstanding. Thank you. Michelle, is this your first KubeCon?
So it's actually my first time being an attendee as opposed to working behind the scenes. It was always us preparing the campaigns and sending all the swag over to the KubeCons in the past years. So it's my first time on the floor.
Very cool. And so what's been one of your favorite parts of KubeCon this year?
There's a lot. I mean, seeing some of my colleagues for the first time, for sure, in person. Also running into some old friends and old colleagues, some other former DigitalOcean people who are out here, and participants going around the exhibitor hall having excited conversations. We'd be remiss not to acknowledge the mixed planning leading up to the event. As you mentioned, companies deciding not to go in person, companies who decided not to participate at all, among a lot of other adjustments. So I think everyone out here, aside from having the privilege of being able to physically attend, are particularly purposeful and excited about being here. Like, the community is so strong. And also with bias, I'll share that our team at Ambassador has an ice cream truck parked.
Oh,
yeah. So, like I told you, KubeCon puns. So we're serving up some cube cones along with some special Sundays. So one of my favorite parts for sure.
Good job. Did you craft KubeCon? Was that Michelle C?
No, it was the whole team. The whole team got on the KubeCon train.
Well, when I was previously at Mesosphere, and we put on Ice KubeCon at KubeCon in Seattle, which that's hard to beat for a pun, and we had Ice Cube.
The actual rapper. Oh my gosh. Yes, the puns are out of control within the Kubernetes community.
Yeah.
Great. Well, Michelle, is there anything I didn't ask that you'd like to say about yourself or Ambassador Labs?
Nope. Just happy to be here. Happy to see you all.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you, Matt and Michelle. We're glad you're here. If you're watching and have questions for either Matt or Michelle, throw them in the chat and we will get to those. And we've got a couple, well, I guess one more person. Hello, Behruz from Uzbekistan. We're happy to have you here. And thank you, Rockstar74, for bringing more people to our channel. And let's move on to our next segment, which is News Flash. This is the KubeCon edition. So I'm going to share my screen. If you're with us most weeks, we have music provided by Mason. He's not here this week, so no music. So we're just going to hop right in. So
I will also just say that normally I write the news here, but it's Kubernetes stuff this week. So you're going to have the joyous experience of me not understanding anything.
Yes, I had to do the hard work that Matt normally does for Cloud Chats, which is compile the news, read the news, and be able to say something pithy about each news item. So we have a couple of non-Kubernetes non-Kubernetes news items, but mostly Kubernetes stuff for KubeCon. So the first announcement is from us at DigitalOcean. Earlier this week, we released an early availability version of our new control plane for our managed Kubernetes service. It's high availability. And so you as the user don't see much of a difference, but if you create a new cluster and you enable the high availability control plane, your cluster is going to spin up more quickly, sometimes in fewer than 30 seconds. There's more repairing and self-healing that goes on in the background. and the control plane is now more secure. It's backed by isolation and runtime primitives of containerization technology itself. So if you are an existing DigitalOcean managed Kubernetes user, check that out. If you look at this blog post, we have some links for you and a video there. Oh, and Toon Arnie Captain says, it is really fast. I'm glad you tried it out. Cool. Our next item in the world of, I'm going to block that, of IPOs, GitLab IPO'd at $77 a share for an $11 billion valuation. So, wow, holy moly, congratulations, GitLab. I don't know, any comments from my co-host?
Well, I don't think it's surprising, you know, I mean, clearly GitLab have a fantastic product and, you know, have a dedicated user base. So yeah, I wasn't surprised at that.
Yeah, so it was really nice to see this as well, right after their 10th anniversary last week. It was very well timed.
Yeah, Matt Cowley mentioned that this was coming up a few weeks ago to me, and I was like, "Oh, they aren't already a public company." I just assumed that they were. So, yeah, congratulations, GitLab. And I saw some pictures of people I know at GitLab on like the side of a building in New York City, where they sort of
buying yachts,
buying yachts, or like where there's windows as part of your face when your face is up there. Awesome. So congratulations, GitLab. All right, our next news item, more details from Facebook on the October 4th outage. So this is one that Matt Cowley knows more about than I do. So I'm going to pass it to you, Matt.
Sure. So we talked about this last week on Cloud Chats. If you somehow missed it, Facebook went down for like 5 hours at the start of last week due to a networking issue, essentially. They've since put up this blog post that proclaims to have more details about what happened. But if you read through it, there's actually very little detail on like the technical aspects of what happened and what caused this to go down. Pretty much what we already knew, which was that they had a BGP configuration issue that stopped them announcing their routes. And so they disappeared from the internet for a bit. I think they have like a single sentence in here that just says they pushed a configuration change that wasn't meant to go out. So
yeah, and then the interesting bit, I think, is the fact that all of their tools were connected to the services which had gone down. So then they couldn't actually connect to any of the servers to fix anything. So which is kind of interesting that even at Facebook scale, you know, I mean, this is something that almost everybody who's ever operated infrastructure at scale knows about. You think that things aren't connected together, and then you find in a real outage that everything is actually connected together, and all your stuff breaks. And so what they said their out of band went down, but their out of band clearly wasn't out of band because it was connected to their it relied on their internal DNS service.
Yeah, so I think they also said like their physical access control to the data centers also failed, which feels like something that again should be out of band. But you know,
yes, indeed. You can have too much automation, I think, is probably the moral of that story. Apparently, people couldn't get into the buildings either because their access control system was also connected to.
So I think the outage was less about the BGP configuration going wrong and more just about the fact that they didn't know how to fix it because they couldn't fix it.
Yeah.
Oof. Well,
it was a bad day at Facebook.
It was.
Not the only bad day at Facebook recently.
Rough week at Facebook. All right, let's go on to our next news item, which is that the Kubernetes Cluster API has been released in version 1.0. So that's a big deal. So this was announced last week. All right, so today we announced Cluster API v1.0 is production ready and officially moving to v1 beta 1 APIs. Outstanding.
Yeah, Cluster API is a great project, and it's the Kubernetes inception, basically, isn't it? It's like building Kubernetes using Kubernetes.
Ooh. Yeah, I think one of the keynotes yesterday was Caslin Fields from Google Cloud talking about multi-cluster, and I definitely am seeing sort of the trend of like, okay, yeah, clusters controlling clusters, having multiple clusters that can communicate with one another. Like we're really sort of expanding beyond just a production and a staging cluster, it seems like, in the Kubernetes sphere. So outstanding. All right. Now we're going to switch into some things that were announced yesterday during the opening keynotes at KubeCon North America. So the theme of this year's conference is Resilience Realized. They have a theme every year, and so that's this year's theme. And I got
unless you're Facebook.
This is my Twitter, but I wanted to go to CNCF by the numbers. So this person, let's see, Bill Mulligan was live tweeting, and I haven't seen this slide deck go up yet. So this is what I wanted to share. So this was Priyanka Sharma, who's I believe the chair of this year's KubeCon, works for the CNCF, incredibly involved, but talking about the numbers regarding the CNCF as of yesterday. So as of yesterday, there are 144 projects being shepherded by the CNCF, over 137,000 contributors, which has grown by almost 15,000 since May of 2021, which was less than 6 months ago. And then 186 countries are the number of people from different countries all over the world who are contributing to these CNCF projects. So thought it was some really interesting numbers, and they did highlight like those numbers have jumped a lot during the pandemic and a lot in the last 6 months. So I don't know, any thoughts there from?
I will just say I did sigh when you read out the first one. Like 144 projects, super cool. But if the CNCF landscape wasn't already confusing enough, it just got a bit more confusing.
Yeah, I say it every time. That interactive landscape always makes me feel a little sick to my stomach when I pull it up, just because there's so many projects.
Well, it now literally hurts your eyes to look at it.
Yeah. Now,
do you remember that? Do you remember that thing where that kid sold pixels on a web page like years ago, and the $1 million web page, or wasn't it? I think it was called. And like it was so painful to look at. It was absolutely, it like messed with your brain. Yeah, there you go.
So this is the interactive landscape.
To look like that.
And I have to like make it smaller. I have to scroll over, but it has a little tile for every CNCF project. And then the thing I do like about it is that it's organized by sort of, I guess, I don't know, by like there's databases and streaming and messaging and application definition and build image, CI, CD. So you can drill down into different categories, but I don't know. I think all of us, part of our jobs are sort of keeping up with the news around the CNCF. And every time I look at this, I'm like, I don't know if I can do it, everybody. It's really intimidating. So yes, Matt, I appreciate that comment, that looking at that 144 number is like, okay, maybe we need a different data visualization. All right, so during yesterday's keynote, they also announced the location of next year's KubeCons. So KubeCon EU will be in Valencia, Spain, and KubeCon North America will be in Detroit, Michigan in the US. So fingers crossed that we can go to both of those in person, because I would love to go to Spain, and I would love to, I've been to Detroit once, but I'd love to go back. And I think that's really exciting. So, all right, going back to the CNCF projects. So some of these things got announced earlier in the year, but I think they were just talking about the batch of products, or the batch of projects that have sort of moved through the sandbox, the incubator to graduated. Okay, I did have that one. So Cilium has joined the CNCF as an incubating project. So Cilium is a CNI, is that right, Matt Jarvis?
Yeah, although it's eBPF based, so it's all like deep down in the kernel. eBPF is super cool. It's basically a way to program the kernel, and so Cilium's a very cool project. And eBPF's just extremely hot at the minute generally. There's just, I think there's a new eBPF Foundation just been launched.
Oh yeah.
And lots of folks are doing stuff in that space now.
Yeah, I think I agree that it's very hot right now. And I didn't realize, or I'd forgotten that a foundation was formed. But that's neat. That's part of the options with Cilium. Another announcement, Crossplane. It looks like it's been moved to incubating. So I like their logo, which is a popsicle. We go to their project website. I'll accept those. So it says compose cloud infrastructure and services into custom platform APIs. So it's a Kubernetes add-on that lets you assemble infrastructure from multiple vendors and expose higher level self-service APIs for application teams to consume without having to write any code. Okay, so it looks like you can make an API for your developers that will give them access to your infrastructure and Kubernetes clusters without them actually having to worry about being in the Kubernetes cluster.
So this is another example of that everything is a CRD idea in Kubernetes, right? Kubernetes, for folks who aren't familiar with it, has this concept of custom resource definitions where you can basically plug these things in as a custom type in Kubernetes, say, I want one of these things, and you can tell Kubernetes what that thing consists of. And so it's basically a way of using the Kubernetes API to address different kinds of objects that aren't addressed in core Kubernetes. And this stuff is all about, Crossplane is all about being able to provision cloud infrastructure. So like you can go, give me an AWS host, or I think DigitalOcean's probably supported on it as well, right? Supports a ton of different cloud providers.
I think so.
It's a way of using Kubernetes to provision infrastructure in cloud platforms, which is I think it does more than that as well, but it's pretty cool. Oh no, props doesn't support DO. Well, there you go. Someone should write a plugin for DigitalOcean.
We'll look into that for sure. All right, so yeah, this is more of that like Inception style, like Kubernetes, making Kubernetes.
Yeah.
All right.
Where's your Kubernetes cluster to start with? If like
exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that gives me another like abstract conceptual thing to wrap my mind around. So Crossplane.
I love the graphics here.
The graphics are very nice.
The technology kind of going over my head, but the graphics make it worth it.
It's a cube. It's not really a cube cone, but I want to come back to the cube cone. Ice cream from Ambassador Labs. All right, so that's Crossplane. Next up is Flux. I believe also moved to the incubator section of the CNCF projects. The U.S. Department of Defense looks like they use Flux, so it's getting more stable. One of the things from yesterday's keynotes that I didn't realize was, so there's the CNCF sandbox, so your project can be in the sandbox, then it can graduate to the incubator, and then it graduates to being graduated. And a lot of that is related to the crossing the chasm language, where you're graduated once people are really adopting your product, and it's something that's viewed as normal. So I actually didn't know that until yesterday. All right, and then I think our last one, this was announced a long time ago, but again, batching Linkerd, the service mesh has been moved to the graduated project. And I was very interested. I noticed that in the keynote, Priyanka said basically like Linkerd is better than Istio, and so I was like, oh, I didn't realize that was going to be a thing, but it looks like Linkerd is getting more support from the CNCF and really throwing that behind them. So all right, any other comments about some of the projects that have moved through the progression of the CNCF? All right, I'm going to move us forward then. So the next thing is a language change. So if you're somebody who is in a Kubernetes SIG, They have renamed CNCF SIGs to technical advisory groups, so tags. So before there were CNCF SIGs and Kubernetes SIGs, and that was very confusing. And so they have renamed the tags. The tags have a charter. And so if you look up one of the tags like tag security, they all have their own website, which is great, either a GitHub repo or something that's generated documentation. Each tag has elected leaders. So if you are someone who's pretty senior in the community, or you know someone who is, you can nominate them to be a leader of a tag. And then tags have a lot of power. They can help determine when projects move through the sandbox to the incubator to graduated. And then I'll see if I can make this larger. Not that picture. So the tags are tag security, storage, app delivery, network runtime, observability, and contributor strategy. So Matt, it seems like you know some things about tags and SIGs. Tell us more.
So, well, tags are, I mean, you know, the tags, SIGs, whichever way you kind of want to talk about the nomenclature, are, you know, they're a great way to get involved with the community, especially if, you know, they're really good for non-code contributors as well. So there's always work to be done in those groups. You know, the SIGs are specific to Kubernetes. Tags go across all of the CNCF projects. So I'm involved in tag security when my schedule allows, and you know, it's a great welcoming community. Folks always looking for people to come and help contribute. You don't need to be an expert. There's lots of levels that you can get involved with. So I would just say to everybody that's getting into cloud native, if you want to start contributing, you don't know where, go along to tag meetings, say hi. You know, the folks are very friendly, and there's lots of opportunities for you to get involved.
Oh, excellent. I did not realize that, but I'm going to check that out. I'm still trying to find my way into being a contributor to some sort of the Kubernetes project or the CNCF.
Yeah, well, that's a great place to start. Any of the tags or any of the SIGs. And, you know, you don't need to be a super expert. There's, like I said, you know, there's always places where you can get involved in different levels, whether that be helping to write things, you know, documentation, etc., running little projects. You know, there's all sorts of stuff going on behind the scenes, supporting the you know, the work of creating the software, because writing the software is not all there is to successful open source projects, right?
Oh, absolutely. Kind of related in that the CNCF and the Linux Foundation are trying to make cloud a little bit easier to get into for entry-level people. This was the announcement at Keynotes I was most excited about. The Linux Foundation is developing a new exam called the Kubernetes and Cloud Native Associate Exam, and it's designed for people who maybe don't have a lot of technical skill right now but want to get into the field. And so I took the CCAD when I first started working in DevOps, and I learned so much by preparing for that exam, because you get dropped into a Kubernetes cluster and you have to do all of these things inside of that cluster under a time constraint. So it's a difficult exam, but I learned
and
a
then
lot.
You never use any of it ever again because you hand wrote all your YAML. Which
there's a lot of
anyway.
yes. There's been some times I'm like, why do I never generate a YAML file from the command line? I do that in tutorials all the time, but this exam is a multiple choice exam. It's meant to be an entry into the cloud world without needing a lot of technical chops, so a stepping stone. And I am so happy for this, because I think DevOps and the cloud in particular have been hard to get into. There haven't been a whole lot of introductory materials, and to have an exam like this, I think, is really exciting. So the exam, they asked for people to test the exam, so it's in beta currently, and I think they're hoping to release it general availability by the end of the year. So if you're watching and you're like, I don't know how to get into the cloud or Kubernetes, check out the Kubernetes and Cloud Native Associate. You might not be able to take the exam now, but even things like just the information about what's on the exam can be helpful. So check that out. And then, oh yeah, we have one last thing, which is a reminder of cloud credits. So this program has been in existence for a long time, but basically companies donate money, and if they are a cloud provider, like cloud computing resources to the CNCF so that the CNCF can host its projects. This was something I was not consciously aware of, which makes perfect sense. You know, I've read through this, but yeah, if you want to, I mean, if you are a person who has deep pockets at a company, if you want to get this going, it's a great way to support the CNCF and all of the open source development that's happening. So that was the news. Okay, that wasn't as long as I thought it was going to be. I wasn't quite sure how long that was going to take. Okay, excellent. So next up is true or false. So Toon Army Captain, we've got your Kahoot for you. So let's move on to that. And I just have to switch some screens around. So give me just a moment.
Can I guess what the topic might be this week?
Matt, why don't you guess what the topic might be this week?
Could it possibly be cloud native stuff?
Absolutely. This week's topic is KubeCon and Kubernetes and CNCF trivia. So if you are new, during Cloud Chats every week, we play a true and false game using this platform called Kahoot, and you can play with us live on your phone or your computer. So go to kahoot.it and then enter the code 740-9951. That's 740-9951, and we have our first participant, which is Eager Eagle. So you'll get a randomly generated animal name with some sort of funny adjective, like Agent Iguana, Agent Lemming. So yeah, check it out. Oh, and I'm so glad Carlos is here. So I think Carlos is one of the people who developed that new exam, and they say, due to overwhelming response, we've exceeded our target and closed the beta tester sign-up form a bit earlier than expected. So if you want to be a beta tester, that has passed, but keep an eye open for when the exam is out of beta and available for people to take. Thanks, Carlos. We're glad to have you here.
I had to Google this. Turns out lemming is a real animal.
Oh, yeah.
I'd always just assumed it was the lemming from... No, it's a real animal as well.
Aren't lemmings the animals? I mean, I don't know how often this actually happens, but like where a group of them will run off a cliff together because they do everything in groups.
Yeah, which I now realize is where the inspiration came for the game.
Yeah, keep up, Matt.
It's all right. Matt's young. We forgive him for things like that. And we tease him for being so young because he's so good at what he does. It puts the rest of us to shame.
You learn something new every day.
It's true. Well, we're going to give you a couple of minutes to join our true or false quiz on Kahoot. We will be sending out some DigitalOcean swag to the person who wins. So keep that in mind. And while we're giving people time to sign up, we have our word of the week. Matt, beautiful. Our word of the week is container orchestrator. And so that's what Kubernetes is, a container orchestrator. And Red Hat has an outstanding definition, which is that container orchestration automates the deployment, management, scaling, and networking of containers. Enterprises that need to deploy and manage hundreds or thousands of Linux containers and hosts can benefit from container orchestration. So that's container orchestrator. I'd love to hear from my colleagues. When that term comes up, aside from Kubernetes, what do you think of? Or maybe some container orchestrators that are less popular than Kubernetes. It's not the only one.
No, yeah, there are several others. Apache Mesos is probably the one of the most well-known ones that was kind of a precursor to Kubernetes. But then inside Google, you also had those things like Borg and Omega, which were the kind of proprietary things inside Google that some of the ideas for Kubernetes came out of. Nomad from HashiCorp is another well-known container orchestrator. Docker Swarm. I mean, I think in lots of ways Kubernetes has kind of ended up the most widely used, but it's not always the best option for every use case. And
Absolutely. Yeah. Kubernetes is hot. And I mean, with having the CNCF backing it so much, it gets a lot of press and it gets a lot of contributors and has a lot of teams that support it. But it's not always the thing you need to use, and that's okay.
No, absolutely.
And that's okay. All right. We have 10 people in the Kahoot room, so we're going to get started. Here we go. All right, true or false? KubeCon edition. It's October 14th, 2021. Our first question is true or false? Last year's KubeCon Cloud Native Con North America had 10,000 registrants. True or false? Last year's Cloud Native Con KubeCon North America, which was virtual, had 10,000 registrants. True or false?
This feels like a Mason question where you're going to go, it's 10,001.
That is false. So last year's KubeCon Cloud
I think
Native
it probably
Con
had a
North
lot more,
America,
did it?
It had a lot more. It had 22,816 registrants. 70% of that number attended, which is phenomenal. And 67% were first-time KubeCon attendees. So
wow, majority.
Yeah, actually, like a large majority. So
yeah, there we go. That was what we talked about at the start, right?
Yep. Yeah, more access. So one thing I really like is that a lot of big conferences like KubeCon publish data afterward. And I think that data is just really interesting. And some of our next questions are from the KubeCon North America 2020 report. So we'll take a look at that. All right, let's see who's on top of the leaderboard. In first place, we have Sturdy Horse. Not far behind is Agent Lemming in second place, and then Stellar Frog in third. Matt Cowley, give us your explanation that you
Do you want the line? Do it every week. This isn't just about getting it right. It's about speed as well. Kahoot rewards you for how quickly you get the correct answer. So as you can see, there's lots of different scores here. That's because someone pressed the answer faster than others.
So if you're not sure, just pick an answer and go. All right, let's go on to question number 2, true or false? The keynote speakers for KubeCon 2020 were 48% men and 52% women or gender non-conforming people. So true or false, the keynote speakers for last year's KubeCon North America were 48% men and 52% women or gender non-conforming people. Looks like most of us got that. That is correct. So the CNCF, I think, is trying to increase the diversity of its speakers. So representation matters. If you see someone that you can relate with on stage, you're more likely to get interested in that technology. So, ooh. The leaderboard, Agent Lemming in first place, Sturdy Horse in second place, again, not far behind, and Eager Eagle coming up quickly to third place. All right, next question. The track session speakers for KubeCon 2020 were 84% men and 16% women or gender non-conforming. So this is not the keynote talks, but the other talks. True or false, the track session speakers for last year's KubeCon, 84% men, 16% women, or gender non-conforming people. Ooh, false. That was actually true.
I was surprised at that. It seems like that's not a very good statistic.
Yeah, I would say that's not a great statistic. So the keynote speakers get invited by the organizing committee, and then the track speakers are pulled from people who submit talk proposals. So it seems like we need some work on that part of the talk funnel. Like, okay, who is submitting proposals? Who feels comfortable? Who's getting selected? So I used to run a conference in Denver, Colorado, and we thought a lot about how do we get just a more diverse group of people doing our talks. And you have to think about, early on, who do we invite, like explicitly reach out to? Do we offer trainings for how to write proposals and how to give a talk if your talk's accepted? So definitely something to think about. So the leaderboard, Agent Lemming still in first place, Radiant Boa. You have the highest answer streak, gotten all 3 right, in second, and Sturdy Horse in third. All right, true or false? Kubernetes version 1.0 was released in 2013. True or false? Kubernetes version 1.0 was released in 2013. All right. The answer is actually false. I believe 1.0 was released in 2015.
Much later than that.
Yeah, and that there was probably some 0 point releases prior to 2015. So it's tricky. These questions are always tricky. All right, we've got Agent Lemming still in first, Radiant Boa, and Sturdy Horse. Next question, true or false? One of the requirements for the Kubernetes MVP was basic health checking to repair and ensure a self-healing system. True or false, one of the requirements for the Kubernetes MVP was basic health checking and repair to ensure a self-healing system. So this is when Kubernetes was still in development. Ah, y'all got it. Good job, everybody. That is true. I read a blog post by, I think, Brendan Burns and Joe Beta, and they were talking about what were the criteria that needed to be true for the MVP, and that was one of them, a self-healing system. Agent Lemming in first.
One of the key functions of a container orchestrator really is make sure things are running all the time in the way that you expect them to be.
Yeah. My first KubeCon was in 2018, and I went to a session where I got some one-on-one time with Jordan Leggett, who's one of the core maintainers of Kubernetes. And I remember he said to me, well, fundamentally, Kubernetes, you just tell it what you want, and it checks for that and tries to get the system to that state.
Reconciles, yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was a big aha moment for me. All right. Ooh, this might have changed since I wrote this quiz last weekend. So true or false, less than 10 projects have graduated from the CNCF. True or false, I guess fewer than 10 projects have graduated from the CNCF. Excellent. That is false. A lot of people got that. As of last weekend, it was 16 projects. So, and that number is just going to keep growing and growing. All right, Agent Lemming, Sturdy Horse, and Radiant Boa getting toward the end here of the quiz. True or false, Kubernetes runs in less than half of container environments. So true or false, Kubernetes runs in less than half of container environments. Matt Cowley, what do you think? I'm curious.
False, I think. There you go.
Yep. So this is pulled from a CNCF survey of users earlier in the year, but Kubernetes runs in more than half of container environments. Matt Jarvis, is that in line with what your experience has been talking with customers?
Yeah, I mean, although it's also surprising that there's how many folks there are out there, particularly in kind of enterprises. You know, some kind of industries are slower to change, and you know there's an awful lot of people out there still just using Docker to deploy things, you know, in a more kind of in a slightly more manual way, and are still getting their heads around the whole idea of container orchestration. I mean, I think that's you know kind of general to our industry, though. You know, especially for those of us who work in technology, it's super easy to forget that there's millions of people working out there in technology who aren't using the latest shiny things, you know, and they're still doing things in an older way. Maybe there's loads of people still using virtual machines, for example. You know?
Oh yeah.
And,
well, the data's only as good as the number of responses. So who knows who responded to? I mean, we could find out, but I don't remember how many people responded to the survey and sort of.
Well, I mean, I suspect it's somewhat self-selecting, right? That the Cloud Native Computing Foundation survey of cloud native computing users probably doesn't include the people who aren't cloud native, I suspect.
Yeah, so this is a CNCF survey. Feels exactly biased.
Yeah.
It's true. It's true. Oh, Sturdy Horse in first, Agent Lemming in second, and Radiant Boa in third.
Oh, it's a streak of 7. Got them all right.
Number 8, true or false? More than 25% of containers deployed in Kubernetes are using less than 10% of the requested amount of CPU. So true or false, in Kubernetes, more than 25% of containers deployed are using less than 10% of the requested amount of CPU.
I am guilty of this.
That is true. Matt, tell us how you're guilty of that. What does that look like?
Quite a lot of the stuff that we deploy does things intermittently. And so we request lots of CPU for when it does its thing, and then it idles most of the time.
Absolutely.
Like Hacktoberfest, for example, we have a thing that runs once every 6 hours to process users. And when it does that, it pins the CPUs at 100% for quite a while.
Does it pull back down after?
Yeah, it idles at
runs?
like 1% CPU usage because it's a no process doing nothing.
Excellent. Matt, Jarvis, what do you think of this statistic?
Oh, well, I mean, this has been the case for, you know, containers were all supposed to be about how do we get more resource utilization, right? And then people go, oh, well, yeah, but my container needs 32 gig of RAM and, you know, 8 cores. So, yeah. I mean, that's a frightening statistic, really, though, from the energy usage perspective.
Oh, yeah.
Because if we look at this from a, you know, if we think about billions of workloads all over the planet and they're sat there, you know, idling and having allocated themselves a big amount of RAM and CPU that no other process can get, you know, that's just burning the planet, really. It's kind of sad in a way.
Oh, absolutely. I think I have noticed the conversation about the environmental impacts of cloud computing in the last year or so. And yeah, if you are requesting all of these compute resources but not using them, like that's electricity, you know, that's the cooling and the water that goes to the data center to keep the computers operating. Like,
because I mean, the original design point with all of these systems was to get maximum utilization. Because if you're Google, and then what you really want is for every single core that you own on the planet to be almost full all the time, because it's costing you to have that in a data center. And so, you know, I think for the hyperscalers, it probably is true that for their own workloads, they've got very high resource utilization. But I think for the rest of us, we do very badly with this, even people who are cloud native.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I used to work at a Kubernetes consulting agency where we would talk with the app developers while we sort of operated their Kubernetes clusters. And I just think that a lot of app developers that I worked with didn't know how to actually take these things into consideration. So they just sort of pick an arbitrary number or pick a number that was way too high. And then we would sometimes like run some diagnostics and say like, you know, you don't need to request that much CPU or memory because this is what your app is tending to use over the course of time. So.
I mean, you folks must have some insight into that at DigitalOcean, right? I mean, what's the average resource utilization across DigitalOcean's platform?
I bet we do, but I have not asked for those numbers. But I'm going to ask for those numbers.
I would suspect it's similar. I mean, this has always been like this, you know, through virtual machines and on bare metal. It's always been that we over resource, you know, workloads, and we probably are not very good at writing applications that, you know, manage resources well either, because we've got used to having crap loads of memory. So, you know, people like get used to like, oh, it's not a problem, my application's slow because I can just add another 96 gig of RAM to it and now it runs fine.
I also relate to that part of it.
Rather than optimizing your DB queries or whatever it was that was causing the gigantic memory usage.
But I will say though, like, it has helped, right? We're not just throwing one job on an entire box anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if the CNCF is incubating any projects that give data about this sort of usage. Or
I think there is some, but I'm not familiar with them.
Excellent.
We could get the magnifying glass out and try and find them on the landscape.
Absolutely. Well, I will also try to take a look at that. I've decided, I don't know if I'll actually do this, but one thing I'd like to do after live streams or tech talks or cloud chats is whenever it's like, oh, that's a topic I don't know much about, or let me get back to you on that, to actually do that and like tweet about it. So we'll see. We'll see if that happens. All right. back to the Kahoot. We have, no change, Sturdy Horse, Agent Lemming, and Radiant Boa. Just a couple more questions left. True or false? More than 50% of all containers have a lifespan that is greater than 2 weeks. So this is Kubernetes specific. True or false? More than 50% of all containers have a lifespan that is greater than 2 weeks. That is false. I don't have the statistic that would make it true handy, but I think this is also part of the design of Kubernetes and these container orchestration systems, that you have containers that get spun up and then maybe somebody pushes a change or something happens with the underlying node and they just need to be restarted again. So yeah, that makes sense to me, that they don't last all that long, the actual containers themselves. All right. Ooh, Radiant Boa, 9 correct answers in a row. Wait, we've only had 9 questions. Good job, Radiant Boa.
This is supposed to be my specialist subject. I think I've got all of them wrong.
I did not warn Matt, Jarvis, and Michelle how hard the Kahoots are, even when you're like a subject matter expertise. They're just, it's just can be totally demoralizing. So it's not you, it's us. All right, last question. True or false? More than half of Kubernetes clusters contain 5 or less nodes. I made a typo there, but you get it. True or false? More than half of Kubernetes clusters contain 5 or fewer nodes. Ooh, let's see. This is true. Tell me more about that affirmative noise.
Well, I think there's a massive amount that are like 2 nodes, which does kind of, beg the question about, have you questioned whether you actually really need a container orchestrator?
Yeah, if you're only running 2 VMs,
exactly. It's kind of
I think I am looking forward. And then
you've got another 3 VMs to run the control plane.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm looking forward to maybe a less, even though Kubernetes is my job, like a less hyped up Kubernetes world, where we really do say like, okay, what's the best tool for the job? What's the most efficient tool? What tool is going to use the fewest amount of like resources? So
I mean, one of the issues around this has been about kind of security, that people have, people talk about this word kube sprawl, where a massive amount of organizations run like more than 25 clusters because that Kubernetes has never really had the strong multi-tenancy idea. So you end up with every group running their own Kubernetes cluster, and so this big sprawl of clusters everywhere.
We have a snarky comment from Original Wirt that I think is kind of funny. Yeah, I stood up 200, nodes for one job, and it gets the job done really fast. So. Well, back to the podium. Congratulations, Sturdy Horse, who's in first place. If you send me an email, and I'm dropping my email in the chat, send me your address, including your country, where you live, if it's not in the United States. So send me your name, your address, and if I need anything else, I'll respond back to you. But for your swag, it's Kim Schlesinger or Kate Schlesinger at DigitalOcean.com. That's in the Slack. Excellent work, Agent Lemming and Radiant Boa got 10 out of 10 correct. Nice job.
Plot twist, Radiant Boa is actually Matt.
Oh, yeah. Matt Cowley.
I got, I think, maybe 2 correct. So
it's all good. If you learn something, I'll go with that. All right. Well, we are coming up toward the end of this Cloud Chats edition. And so usually when we wrap up, we do What's on Your Mind. We are going to do What's on Your Mind, but we're going to combine it with plugs. So we're going to have Michelle and Matt tell us what's on their mind, but they're also welcome to plug things that are going on at their companies that they'd like to share. So Michelle, I'm going to have you go first. What's on your mind plugs, and I have my screen ready to share for you.
Yeah. What's on my mind? First of all, in-person conferences are back, at least stateside. So I'm thinking about how we've been able to adjust as an industry. I'm also thinking about how crazy it is that we're already a couple months to the end of the year.
Oof.
I know. I shouldn't have said that.
That's all right.
Yeah. And lastly, I'm fondly thinking of my plants at home on the other side of the country in New York. I hope they're surviving, with mom away.
Mm,
Yeah, first up, wanted to share our Kubernetes Developer Learning Center.
let me get there for you. There we go.
Yeah, so if you scroll down to the what you'll get section, so this is for everyone. This is at a8r.io/learn, and in the what you get, you'll see what perks you'll get. We have giveaways for completing some module milestones, and you can submit final checkpoints to win prizes. Kim, you can even show one section of the module. If you scroll up, you can go to code. You can go to the run section. I know we talk about DigitalOcean there too. So this is an example where each module features some hands-on challenges, and we pair it with instructional video walkthroughs and reading materials. So just some free resources to learn.
That's awesome. I did when this like the program that was the precursor to this Summer of Kubernetes, I did one of the sessions with Ambassador Labs, and I think this is like a very exciting way to learn Kubernetes because you actually can interact with experts and get feedback. Like it's not just a tutorial or a video that you watch, and if you get it, great, and if you don't, there's no one to reach out to. So if you are interested in learning more about Kubernetes, I would definitely check this out.
Yeah, thanks. And then the next thing is I wanted to plug at KubeCon, we at Ambassador Labs have teamed up with Buoyant, JetStack, Sivo, and Weaveworks to raise money for Black Girls Code. So we're donating $2 for every visitor to our respective KubeCon virtual booths. So that's Ambassador Labs, Buoyant, JetStack, Sivo, and Weaveworks. Come visit our virtual KubeCon booths.
Oh, awesome. I'm going to go do that right after this.
And another challenge, another fun Kubernetes challenge is this is the Kubernetes in 5 challenge that we have. You can get to it through a8r.io/kates-in-5. It's get started with Kubernetes in 5 minutes, following 4 easy steps. Or maybe I shouldn't use easy. Just follow 4 steps,
Yeah.
Everyone who participates will win prizes. And actually, one lucky winner will win a rare container ship Lego set.
Ooh. Where is that? Oh my gosh, look at that.
Yeah, so you can participate through here. People at KubeCon are also completing this as the ice cream boat challenge, because they're going to our ice cream truck, they're getting more information, and they're completing this Kates in 5. And then they enter the opportunity to win this grand Lego prize.
Outstanding. All right.
Yeah,
Kubernetes in 5. I think that's it. If you're wanting to start with Kubernetes, this might not be a bad place to look.
Yeah. And just lastly, we announced our Ambassador Cloud Developer Edition. So we at Ambassador think that developers have been left behind by Kubernetes. Kubernetes has kind of been the villain that it's been for the operator, and that developers have kind of been left behind as second-class citizens. And we're here to fix that. So excited to announce the general availability of Ambassador Cloud Developer Edition. So if you're an individual dev or part of a small team, Ambassador Cloud lets you set up a developer control plane to code, ship, and run using Kubernetes with more speed and less YAML. So as part of the Developer Edition, we're giving developers a context-aware HUD, so a heads-up display. Kind of like if you're an Iron Man fan, we're giving the devs kind of like a Jarvis. It lets you manage your apps and services throughout the entire lifecycle. So kind of like a trusty sidekick that visualizes complex K8s environments, suggests important actions to prevent disasters, and automates repetitive tasks.
Excellent. Wow.
Yeah, the promotion that we've been sharing here at KubeCon, but you don't need to be a KubeCon attendee to get this, is that the first 1,000 developers to sign up for a cloud account get a free 1-year subscription.
Yeah, very cool. All right, so go check that out. The new Ambassador Cloud Developer Edition. Right, yes, yeah, right, less YAML. I think it's a very compelling tagline, especially for developers. Great. Well, thank you, Michelle. So many things on your mind and to plug. We will have Matt Jarvis go next. What's on your mind, or what would you like to plug?
So, I mean, I think in terms of what's on my mind, I mean, like we kind of started this conversation around, I'm really interested in how we can continue to engage folks more in this new hybrid world, because I think this is a change that, whilst in some ways it's been forced on us, I think there's also some good stuff has come out of it. And how do we continue to empower those folks? And so I'm interested in how do we make hybrid events more engaging, whether that's virtual worlds. I'm super interested in things like Mozilla Hubs. I don't know whether you've seen sort of online virtual worlds where it gives you a different way of interacting with people. So, that's something that in my work environment that I'm thinking about a lot, about how can we continue that kind of engagement in this new world. From a Snyk perspective, the two things that I'm super excited about at the minute. The first one, that we just launched the Snyk Ambassadors program. So for folks out there who are interested in developer security, you can apply to become a Snyk ambassador and get involved with that. It's a really great program. And the first tranche of ambassadors have just been anointed, and there's some great folks in there. I'm sure some of them will be familiar to other folks in the cloud native community. And then the other thing that I'm really proud of is our Snyk Impact program. Now, this is a new initiative that Snyk have been kind of launched over the last 6 months or so, which is about our corporate responsibility and trying to do more outside of just selling software, right? And so this is about getting internal Snyk employees, but also users, customers, and the wider community involved in great projects and supporting great nonprofit organizations out there. If you go to snyk.io /Snyk, just search Snyk Impact and you'll get that on Google. There's a whole bunch of things where we as a company are getting engaged with not-for-profits, both helping them with technology, but also helping with people and code and all the rest of it. But there's also a bunch of ways that you can get involved with some great organizations. So I'm really proud of both of those two initiatives. I think they're great.
Oh, that's wonderful. I like that there are different things to donate as part of this page. So you can donate money if you've got it, or you can donate code.
You can donate time.
Time. Yeah, that's great. Wow, thank you, Matt. That's wonderful.
Yeah, this is awesome.
Yeah, got a lot of good things going on. Matt Cowley, what's on your mind?
I've just said I love the phrasing "donate code." I don't think I've heard it before, but I love it as a different way to talk about contributing to open source. Really cool. What's on my mind? Very little.
I doubt that.
Getting to the point where I just want to take some time off at the end of Hacktoberfest. We had the first winners this morning because we just hit 14 days since Hacktoberfest started.
This must be super busy time for you folks, right? Hacktoberfest.
But this was like the final milestone for me of, does the code work that I wrote 6 months ago? Coupon allocation is working, so I'm like I can chill now and just watch what happens.
Yay!
But yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to taking some time off. My mind is just completely fried.
That makes sense to me. Thank you for sharing, Matt. I hope you get that time off. Yeah, so what's on my mind is KubeCon. My pre-recorded talk is this afternoon, and it's about different ways of visualizing Kubernetes aside from just block diagrams. My first DevOps job, I worked for a Kubernetes consulting agency, and that was Kubernetes was like the first tool I used. So there's a lot of things about Kubernetes that solve problems that previous engineers were working with that I had no idea, like, why do we do it this way, or why is this so cool? So I hope that talk brings a little something to people who are new to Kubernetes. So you can watch that this afternoon. If you're a KubeCon attendee, there's a live chat session that happens as the talk is streamed. And then if you join us at the DigitalOcean virtual booth after that, I'll be around if you just want to chat. But yes, it's on my mind for KubeCon to wrap up because, like both Matts and probably Michelle, October's sort of been our big season. SneakCon was last week, which was a huge event, and I was part of that, and Hacktoberfest and KubeCon and new product releases, and yeah, I have been working really hard like the rest of you, so I'm looking forward to a little bit of downtime. All right. Well,
I don't know how we actually do it. Like, all of DevRel just seems to happen in like October.
It's true.
Like, yeah, a lot going on for us this month for sure too. Yeah, we also had our Dev House this week, which
is
right. Yeah, a lot.
A lot.
As an industry, we just need to discover the rest of the months in the year.
Well, I mean, before in the physical world, there used to be a bit of a season for conferences, and everything was a bit more compressed. But the last 2 years, because everything's gone virtual, it's actually, I don't know whether Kim would agree with this, but I've definitely done more conferences, in the virtual world, and it seems to than I would have done in a physical setting. And it seems to now be the conference season is just all year.
Yeah, it's all year, and I feel like maybe I'm wrong because I'm a relatively new developer advocate, but I feel like every company has its own conference now.
Yeah.
And so it's not only sort of
we're guilty of that.
Yeah, so are we. We have DigitalOcean Deploy, but yeah, it's like, Netlify has a conference, and Snyk has a conference, and DigitalOcean has a conference, and all the big cloud providers have their own conferences. So yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot to parse.
I think AWS now have a conference that lasts the entire year, don't they? It's on every day of the year.
See, Corey tweets every single week about like some sort of AWS conference. So
yeah, I'm pretty sure it's just never ending now.
I think you're right. So, but November, December is usually a time when product development slows and conference schedules slow down. So I hope we all get some good rest. All right, let's move on to our last segment, which is just upcoming events and saying goodbye. So some upcoming events. My KubeCon talk is this afternoon. Matt had a KubeCon talk yesterday, which you can see in the virtual platform. But if you are not a KubeCon attendee, those will be published to YouTube soon. So follow us on Twitter, and I bet we'll both announce when those get published. It's Hacktoberfest, so if you are curious about getting involved with open source or you haven't started yet, you still have 2 weeks left. So if you have 4 PRs in GitHub or merge requests, MRs in GitLab merged in this month, you can get a limited edition Hacktoberfest t-shirt, or you can have a tree planted in your name instead to reduce the environmental impact of creating and shipping that shirt. And then we've got DigitalOcean TV, our Twitch channel. We have Shahar streaming on Mondays. I stream on Tuesdays. Chris streams every other Wednesday, and Mason streams every other Thursday. And then one last thing, next week, Chris Sev is giving a tech talk on Wednesday called Making Full Stack JavaScript Apps. So if that's something you're curious about, you can join us do.co/tech talks. You can find and register there. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining me. This was wonderful. Special thanks to Matt Jarvis of Snyk and Michelle C. of Ambassador Labs for doing the special KubeCon edition. And thank you, Matt Cowley, for joining to be the non-Kubernetes person.
I feel like I've learned a lot and also not understood a lot, but it was good.
I mean, that's how I feel when you and Chris are talking about some JavaScript frameworks sometimes. All right, well, we'll just go around and say goodbye, and then we'll end the broadcast. So thanks so much. I'm Kim signing off.
See you, folks. Thanks
Thank
for
you
having
so
me, Kim.
much.
See you next week.
Bye.
All right, we'll see you next week. Take care, everybody.